I don't live in New York, though.
I know, but inside the state of New York, do you really think the state of New York is getting adequate political representation on Capitol Hill with two fucking people?
Well, that's why you have the Senate and the House, and the House.
Two people who are your senator. You really think
every
that
state gets two senators?
100 people are representing 330 million people? At the very top, it's one person who's representing 330 million people's
interests. So are you
interests.
advocating that we shouldn't have government?
No, what I'm saying to you is that, like, it's very silly for me to look at an argument like you're making and say, oh my God, 100,000 people are going to be in charge, or 200,000 people are going to be in charge. Like, ultimately, one person's in charge.
So you're saying
ultimately one person's in charge.
But there's still checks and balances. That one person isn't a king.
There still would be checks and balances with limited voting.
Power in the
There's still checks and balances with limited voting.
Yeah, but we still do not get to decide who is in our legislature. As a voting body, we do not get to decide who is in the legislature.
You would still have people from within your various communities who would be voters, and they would decide who it is that went to represent you on Capitol Hill.
That sounds very expensive and very pointless, if I'm being honest.
How is that expensive? Okay, fine.
Because you have to pay for all of their housing.
Then if you want to do that, there's another way you could do this too. If you didn't want to do like the civil service way, you could do one vote per household. That would limit the voting significantly. Hang on.
Okay.
And it would be not expensive at all. But
okay.
There's even another way that you can do it on top of that.
Alrighty.
Right? But let's just start with like one household voting. Okay. Same thing.
Let's do it.
You can eliminate whatever this like perceived cost is that you have. Another thing you could do is just eliminate anybody being able to vote until they reach the same age that they could become president of the United States.
Is that not 35?
Mm-hmm.
So you think that everyone under 35 should lose the right to vote?
Why shouldn't everyone under 35 be able?
That was the most boomer shit I've ever heard.
Why shouldn't everybody under 35 be able to be the president of the United States?
Well, because they don't have the... But they're still...
Why? Answer the question.
Because they do not yet have the experience in politics to run an entire country.
So,
but just because you can't
exactly.
Okay, Andrew. But just because you can't run an entire country doesn't mean that you should still not have the right to have one singular vote. It's one vote.
What are you talking about?
Yes, you can't be the president, but you are still susceptible to the laws. You can have a kid at 35. You can have a house at 35.
So, what does that have to do with anything? But you can't be president.
Below
can't be
35,
president, yeah.
Legislatively, below 35, from 18 to 34, all of these people are impacted at the same level.
No, they're not all impacted at the same level. In fact, I would say...
Can they all go to jail for committing a crime?
Yes, I would say the opposite.
Yes,
I would say like people between the ages of 18 and like 25 are mostly living at home, right? And their parents are the ones who are mostly impacted by legislation, not them. And
that
their parents...
Like a skill issue.
And their parents should actually probably have more say than them. Their parents actually have more autonomy than they do because they're dependents on them, right? Completely dependent upon them. It's like, if I look at the trends, it seems to me like if you eliminated from 18 to 25 or from 25 to 35, if the founders didn't think you should be president of the United States till you were 35, I don't think they wanted you to vote either. And you know what? That's why it was never law. Voting
Andrew,
rights are affirmed.
This is some old shit.
That's not an argument. That's not an argument.
Well, I mean, the reason why
give me the argument
is because you're young, you're old. Like, you are not applicable to this law.
What did that have to do with anything?
You're trying to govern a group of people that you are not a member of.
So?
That's the issue.
So what?
Everyone should be representative government.
So how old do you think the average person who's in Congress is?
Hella old, and
they're representing all of you. What do you mean?
And I hate that.
So you think that like 19-year-olds are going to be better governing than 60-year-olds?
No, but I don't think an 80-year-old would be a representative government.
Yeah,
I'm glad Mitch McConnell's
80-year-olds are dying in their depends. They're not governing. What do you mean?
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe, who is in his 80s, now has cancer, and he's not president because he went off the deep end.
I know. And Trump is in his 70s, and Mitch McConnell is in his 80s.
Listen,
all of these people are hella old.
Your presidents and congressmen are running like between the late 40s to 50s to 60s. You don't really think that replacing them with 20-year-olds is a good idea, do you?
I don't think we should replace them with 20-year-olds, but
why not?
Settle for
why not? Wait, why
40.
not? Why not?
Well, they'd have to be elected first. No?
Yeah, I know, but even if they were, don't you think that would still probably not be the worst, or that wouldn't be a good idea?
If they were elected through a democratic representative democracy.
Don't you think they would do a worse job, though, than 40, 50, 60-year-olds would?
Well, we don't know who it is. You can't just say universally, I think a 20-year-old would be worse if they are elected democratically.
Well, why do you think our founders thought that 35 years old was the minimum?
I think the founders thought 35 should be the minimum because you need experience in government to be the head of the government.
No experience in government is even required to become the president of the United States. 0.
Sure.
So why this age of 35?
Well, because you have to have lived in this country for long enough to understand it on a basic level.
Because they also thought you just didn't have the requisite experience probably in life to govern at all.
That's fair. To govern the entire country, I would say that
To govern
someone
anybody?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I think so.
Well,
I mean, why is it that they didn't let people vote? Why do you think they didn't want people to vote?
I mean, dude, they were kind of fucked up. I mean, do you really want to base all of your beliefs on the founding fathers? They owned slaves.
So? The whole world owned slaves.
Just because a lot of people do something doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, we were some of the first to take people out of slavery, especially the West.
Pretty sure that was England. France did it second.
The West, then? That's the West. England.
That's not America.
That's the West, which is what I said. The
But do you know
West.
the difference? You said we were the first as in America.
The
no?
West is what I said.
I
The
mean, I don't
West.
think we're the same country as England. Sure, we're like
Yeah,
all
but
in
we're
the
part
same
of the
hemisphere.
West, right?
Yeah,
like
but
England.
We are not run by the same government as England.
Yeah,
We
but
fought a whole
but
war
we're
about
part
it.
of the West, and I said the West is the ones who.
You can't
took
take
us-
credit for something another country did, dog.
Well,
What?
first of all, many of the people who came here from England, right? The idea of the repudiation of slavery came from those very same dogmas.
What time
so,
is it, Brian?
so I don't know what you're talking about.
We're at 4:30. at the
We're at
moment.
4. Okay, dude, you've just spent the last hour trying to defend the belief that both sexes should be somehow disenfranchised from voting. This whole one per household, the one marriage system, and I think fundamentally you have not been able to create an appeal to
Why are
how
we
this
in
would
like
work
closing
practically.
statements here?
Well, because we're supposed to be debating feminism. We never even got to it.
Well, this would be a key component to this, actually. But I'm actually fine with this if you want to move it on to that. But
I
here's
mean,
the thing:
if
you
you wanna
never
keep
made
doing
a
it, we
single
can.
argument.
The argument is that people should be legislatively represented and allowed to vote.
Yeah,
in a
that's an
representative
assertion.
Democracy.
That's just an assertion, not an argument. That's just like, I think so.
The argument is if people are impacted by the laws
Okay.
that legislators create, then they should have a say in who those legislators are.
Yeah, but
whether it's a small say,
but that's a
okay.
performative contradiction because you said that people who are affected by laws who A, don't live here, or B, are younger than a certain threshold should be
It's not a
disenfranchised.
performative contradiction. It's the point of democracy.
No, it's
is
listen.
that we should be represented by a representative
I
government.
need you to understand this logically. That you're performing a
It doesn't make
contradiction.
sense logically because it's a logical fallacy. You were arguing a logical fallacy.
No, what's the fallacy?
The fallacy is that you're trying to essentially stop stupid people from voting by
That's
making
not
sure
a
that less
fallacy.
people
That's
can
not a
vote.
logical fallacy.
Well, you didn't let me finish the sentence.
Okay.
You're trying to stop stupid people from voting by making it so that less people can vote, which is in turn taking away the power of the voter.
What's the fallacy?
Well, you're trying to empower voters by taking away voters'
Yeah, how
power.
is that a
That's
logical fallacy?
You can't empower voters by taking away their power.
How am I trying to empower voters? What are you
I thought the whole
talking
point
about?
is that you're trying to combat tribalism and that you want smart people's votes to
What
not
does that have
be
to do with
nullified by
empowering
stupid
voters?
I thought that's why you're against NGOs, lobbyists, bribes. You want to empower the people.
I don't know what you're talking.
So you
like,
just don't want the country.
I don't even
to
know
be
what you're talking
represented?
about. What I'm saying
Ooh,
to
he's
you is
getting
that if you want to
grumpy.
eliminate tribalism, you don't want to have nothing but an unlimited amount of people voting, where NGOs can mark to the stupid people and bend them to their will, and now have that entire bracket for whatever it is their political agendas are.
So again, why not just get rid of NGOs? Oh my God, NGOs are a problem.
Would you
Let's
like
make
to-
sure less people can vote?
Gee, I'd never thought of that. Why don't we get rid of NGOs, the people who are utilizing tribalism so that they exist? Boy, I wish I had thought of that.
You're utilizing tribalism?
No, they're utilizing tribalism so they exist.
Okay, but you're a political pundit. You have the power to help people. Why not promote a stance that is actually useful to them instead of trying to take away their vote?
Great. A stance that would be actually useful to them would be having their well-informed votes not nullified by non-well-informed voters of what you believe and I believe are more than the well-informed voters. That's exactly something I can do to help everybody.
But you're not helping everyone because stupid people still live here.
So what?
They still have a right to exist in a society.
Who's
where they're
taking
not
away their
dictated
right
by
to
smart-
exist in a society? Nobody.
Yes, you are, because they're
How?
if they are still held accountable to the
Let's
same
do,
laws, but now have no right or vote or say in who is enacting those laws and who is representing them in government.
Like 17-year-olds?
Final statement from
They're
both of you on
children.
this, if you
They don't
Okay,
pay
yeah.
taxes.
Final statement is like her position's a contradiction. She says everybody should be able to vote inside of a country where they are governed by the laws. The problem is that then she says all sorts of people who fall into the criteria of being supported by laws shouldn't be able to vote. It's literally a performative contradiction. Then she moves to my view and agrees with my view that mostly that stupid people outnumber smart voters, and when you're talking about ill-informed voters, that NGOs often take advantage of them, or I mean, always take advantage of them. She literally agrees with all of this, but somehow still thinks it's a better idea to allow this to continue because I don't know. She never really gave an argument for that. I don't really actually know why.
My turn?
Yeah, you can respond. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I mean, I get that you don't understand why, and I get that you don't understand my argument, and I'm sorry. I hope one day you do. But what I will say is, generally, yes, it's annoying that stupid people are allowed to vote, even though they sometimes make poor choices and fight against their own self-interest. Yes, we don't like that. Yes, we don't agree. We do agree that lobbyists and NGOs have way too much power in setting precedents for laws. Those are both things that we mutually agree upon. However, I do not think that it is fair to create a limited democracy that in turn disenfranchises voters on the basis of being stupid. I don't think that there is any way to practically enact that. I don't understand why we would do that.
You could enact it with a constitutional convention. That's how you would do it.
And you don't think that the millions of people who now have lost the right to vote they'd be like, okay.
Well, they wouldn't have a choice.
I mean, sure. Protests, riots, there's all sorts of ways that people have fought against a government. I mean, you're basically trying to call the country's bluff on whether or not they care about having the right to vote, which I think is just stupid. I think personally it's pointless, and I think that the function of a democracy is to make sure that everyone who has to abide by these laws is represented in government. Is that flawed? Yes.
That's not even true.
Are you going to let me finish? Did I interrupt you?
Let's let her finish, then we're moving on.
Oh, we're moving on.
We're going to
Okay.
move on.
Yeah.
So finish your thing, then we're going to move on.
Okay, so anyway, back to my statement. Yes, this government is flawed. Yes, NGOs have too much power. Yes, it's annoying when stupid people do stupid things. But at the same time, the right to vote is a human right under a representative democracy in the United States of America. To take that away from voters is not the answer to creating a more educated voting body. Like, just genuinely, it's just not.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We have a couple